So I was going through the next speaker is Dr. Prajapati sir. I was going through brief citation of Dr. K.S. Prajapati sir, and what a profile he has. Dr. K.S. Prajapati has retired as professor and head Department of Veterinary Pathology, Veterinary College, Anand, in 2014, but continued to serve the industry in areas of poultry health. Sir, hope you will continue further again, because industry needs the people, the pathologists like you. Dr. Prajapati obtained BVSc and AS from Anand in 1975 with Amul Gold Medal. He did MSc from Bombay Veterinary College in 1979 with Vice Chancellor's Gold Medal and PhD in 1984. Great, sir. Dr. Prajapati has guided 25 MBSc and 5 PhD students in veterinary pathology. Most of his students work on the poultry. He has published 77 research papers in national and international journals of repute. He has presented 93 papers in various national and international seminars, symposia, workshops, and published 24 popular articles. His contribution in the area of poultry pathology was duly recognized by Indian Association of Veterinary Pathologists, IAVP, by honoring him Outstanding Poultry Pathologist Award 1999. His services as veterinary pathologist were also duly recognized by the Gujarat Veterinary Association by honoring him with Exemplary Veterinarian Award 2013. He is counselor in the World Poultry Science Association since 2002. The IAVP confers fellowship and the title of Fellow of Indian Association of Veterinary Pathologists for his outstanding contribution to the advancement of veterinary pathology in India. Association of Veterinary Health Professionals India awarded Lifetime Achievement Award for his services in the field of avian health in 2018. Sir, we are fortunate enough and eager to listen to you. Sir, hope your presentation will be inspiring to the attendees. Thank you very much, sir. Over to Dr. Prajapati, sir.
Screen is visible, no?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
I'm audible also?
Yeah, yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Deshpande, for nice words. And I thanks VIP for giving me this opportunity. I consider this as a privilege or for me to be a speaker in the VIP. Dr. Rupnikar has covered the one side of the coin, that is on the immunosuppression, and I'll be covering the other side of the coin.
Sir, sorry to disturb. Please go full screen.
Is okay?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir.
Now, this the topic which has been selected is very relevant, appropriate for the present time, and probably the participants may get some message out of this webinar. Now, why we need to modulate the chicken immunity? Actually, we need it to exploit for the disease management. Now, all veterinarians, those who are working in the field, they might finding the difficulties in managing the diseases in the field. See, we have lot many viral diseases, and for viral diseases, we have vaccine as the most important weapon. But frequently we fail. So vaccine is not the only answer. There are so many reasons. One thing is so many mutants are coming up, like in case of COVID we have experienced, and we have the similar disease like infectious bronchitis. We have the issues with low pathogenic avian influenza, even with the genotype 13 Newcastle disease. And it is very difficult to get the appropriate specific vaccine for all the variants or the serotypes. So naturally, in spite of vaccination, we do face the outbreak. There are problems with certain vaccines like live ILT vaccine, which can revert back to the virulence. In India, it is not registered also. And in India, we have many other issues with the registration authority. In spite of heavy losses in the poultry industry for certain diseases like ILT, LPI, CAV, we don't get vaccine either. They are not allowed to be manufactured or not allowed to be marketed in India. And that is why there is heavy losses here. And we have the vaccines, but those pathogens, they are becoming more and more virulent. And then our vaccines strategy fails. That means just vaccinating against virus disease is not the solution of managing the diseases, because we frequently fail in this. Similarly, for bacterial diseases, the veterinarian has a very good weapon in hand is the antibiotic. But we know what are the issues with antibiotic, and antibiotics are not the only answer for the control of bacterial diseases. One major issue is the antibiotic resistance. All veterinarians who are working in the broiler, they are very well experiencing this kind of resistance, because nothing works. That's why we have to switch over the injectables, and those injectables are also not working now. Then we have the restriction of use of antibiotics, either for the prevention as well as for the therapeutic use also, because we have to maintain those withdrawal period and take care of the residue issues. And for some bacterial diseases like coryza and fowl cholera, we have the vaccine. But in spite of doing vaccine, we still face the problem of coryza in the flock. That means because of the serotype differences. Similarly, for mycoplasmal diseases, we have the vaccine, but we know the limitations of those vaccines. And we have the drugs for the treatment and for the prevention also. And the antimicrobial drugs, they are the costliest drugs being used in the poultry. That means there is something is required, because only vaccine and treatment may not help in managing the diseases. Again, the future poultry veterinarian will be like a doctor without means, in the sense their hands will be tied because of many issues. One thing, in the hands of veterinarian, there are two important tools. One is the vaccine, another is the antibiotic. But there will be the restriction in the usage of preventive antibiotics, for the therapeutic antibiotics, for the anticoccidial drugs, and particularly if you are heading for the antibiotic-free poultry production or the no antibiotic ever poultry production, this becomes untouchable. So this one very good weapon has gone out of the hands of the veterinarian. Then he has to think how to manage the diseases. Then again, the food safety issues for the residues, for the antibiotic, anticoccidials, the pesticide, and all these things. Because nowadays, because of the extending the particularly layers and the breeders and the market situation, a lot of ectoparasite problem is coming up. Already in the broiler breeder, everybody is experiencing the issues of mites, and the similar issues in the commercial layer, lice and ticks, is now coming on the surface, and we have to use so many of the acaricides and the pesticides, and their issues are again a problem. Then antiviral drugs, they are there, but for poultry they are cost prohibitive, we can't use. Similarly, there are many animal welfare related issues are there. There is a ban on the molting. So if this is there, then how to manage the excise and the shell breakage issue in the older layers if you want to extend the layers, because nowadays rearing cost is so high, one has to extend the layers up to 100 or below, beyond 100 weeks of age. Then the future of cage barn we don't know, but again this will will face all age-old diseases like ectoendoparasites, coccidiosis, very difficult to get clean eggs, and again there are the issues of food poisoning with organisms like salmonella. So under this situation, the veterinarian has to work and show his efficiency. So what will be the future approach of disease management? So a future veterinarian has to rely more on the biosecurity, and you know, Dr. Updikar has also emphasized this point. But in India, to talk on biosecurity is useless, because in our poultry farming condition, it is almost impossible to have the, in real sense, the good biosecurity. For us, the biosecurity is just spraying the disinfectant, and that's not the biosecurity. So probably there are many limitations with this particular thing. And the only thing which is available to us is to improve the host resistance to the pathogen. And that is how we have to enhance or modulate the immunity. And this immunity, we have to modulate or enhance the innate immunity as well as the acquired immunity. So by biosecurity, we prevent the pathogen to reach to the farm or to the bird. If the pathogen approach to the bird, that at the site of entrance, it should be killed. The pathogen should be killed by the innate immunity. And if the innate immunity fails, the pathogen enters into the body, then the immune system should work and fight and recover the bird from the disease attack. Now, some part Dr. Updikar has already covered. Like other systems in the body, digestive system, cardiovascular system, respiratory system, the bird and we have the immune system in the body, and there are the physical barriers are there, like the skin, and the internal barriers in those organs which are connected with the outside environment, like respiratory, digestive, urogenital, conjunctiva. They have the mucous membrane which protects with the direct contact with the pathogen. And then if they can cross this barrier, enters into the tissues, then we have the immune system, and then they will generate the immunity and fight against this. So this is the immune system, primary and secondary. This already have been covered, that the bursa of Fabricius is the main organ which produces the B lymphocyte, thymus, which is a T lymphocyte, and the secondary lymphoid organs. Now let us see what is happening in the universe. In the universe, what is happening, how other species or the creatures, they manage their immunity. If you consider the vertebrates and non-vertebrates, nearly 98% living creature, that is a multicellular, is non-vertebrate. And all these non-vertebrate, they survive for centuries together, they are surviving, and they survive only on the innate immunity. So in universal, we have the two types of immunity, that is innate, which is a non-specific, which is a constitutive, that is a host genome related. Another is the acquired, which is adaptive or specific immune system. So most of the insects and all those variety of organisms, they just survive because they don't have the acquired immunity. They just survive on the innate immunity. So this innate immunity is the first line of host defense. It is very rapid and immediate. Immediate in the sense it is in minutes and hours. Okay. Then it is non-specific. This is very important, non-specific. And we are really getting have the problem with the specificity. Little change in the virus, whether it is the alpha, beta, kappa, whatever it is, the vaccine may not work. Okay, it is the non-specific. Whether it is a E. coli or streptococci or any other virus, it doesn't matter. It will try to kill it. So it is based on pattern recognition receptor, that is the toll-like receptors on many cells, particularly on the phagocytic cells, and doesn't discriminate, and they don't have the memory. So they don't remember, and second time when they are exposed, they doesn't show any kind of the immediate reaction or the enhanced reaction. Okay, so the chickens in the environment, they are exposed to the many microbes. They get exposed to untold numbers of pathogenic agents to air, water, and feed, and without the knowledge of the bird or the host, they get cleared. without any sickness also, because of this innate immunity only. Now, the vertebrate, with the evolution of the animals and the human being, the vertebrate, they got one more arm, that is the acquired immunity. So that is only in the vertebrates. It is very slow, it takes days and weeks, it is very specific, and this specificity definitely helps in controlling very effectively, but again, it is causes problem when the pathogens are changing, and it has got the memory, it remembers, just like vaccination. There will be memory cells which can enzymatic reaction they give with the second exposure. So initially, with the innate immunity which occurs in hours, that is 6 hours, 12 hours, and any organism pathogen which attach, probably it is being cleared at the first site on the barriers, whether it is a mucosal surface. If it a little bit enters, then the phagocytic cells, the natural killer cells, they will take care. So most of the infection, if it is, they are not much pathogenic, they will get cleared at this point only. Those infection which can cross this innate immunity, they enter into the adaptive immunity, and then we have the B cell and T cell type of immunity. So again, in the acquired, we have the humoral and cell-mediated immunity. Everybody knows it, and the humoral basically it is B lymphocyte related, and the bursa is very important. And the early destruction of bursa will prevent the programming of B cells for life, and it will result into the permanent immunosuppression. And for cell-mediated immunity, there are many cells, but these two are very important. That is a cytotoxic T cell, that is a CD8, and the helper T cells, that is a CD4. Now, this helper T cells, they in combination with the B cells, they are responsible for converting B cells into plasma cells and then the production of the antibody. So this is very important. The T cell and B cells each have a repertoire of nearly 10⁹ different antigen specificity. So we have the scope of using 10⁹ types of vaccines. Even then, the space is available for the immune system to show the immunity. So again, in the humoral immunity, we have the 3 types of the antibodies, and mainly initially in the reaction we find the IgM, and which are mainly agglutinate and promotes the phagocytosis. The IgG or IgY, they are found in the serum and yolk. They do the neutralization as well as phagocytosis. They activate the complement system. And the IgA, which is secreted through the mucous, saliva, tears, serum, bile, and this provides the mucosal immunity. They neutralizes the endo and exotoxins and prevent the microbial attachment and colonization. Now, just like other system, the immune system also needs nutrient, energy, and it has got some maintenance cost for that also. So nearly 9% of the nutrient which birds ingest is diverted for the maintenance of the immune system, the immune organ and the effector immune cells. For the maintenance, it needs nearly 9%. So this is one calculation, that the need of the immune system for lysine related to other issues, other uses in the young chicks. So nearly this also utilizes nearly 7 to 10% of the lysine in the maintaining of the immune system. Now, when the immune system is activated with some of the stimuli by the antigen or the pathogen, when it is activated in the normal healthy phase, when the immune system is at rest, the nutrient priority is at the lowest, and the nutrient is available for the growth here. But when the immunity is activated, this is the example of the GI tract, because GI tract has got it is the largest immune organ. More than 50% of the immune cells are in the GI tract. If something goes wrong in the intestine, some insult in the intestine, the immune system get activated and the nutrient priority will change. So they will get a priority in getting the nutrient. So this activated gut immunity will utilizes the quite a sizable amount of the nutrient, and this will affect the weight gain and the FCR. So if the immunity is activated, the nutrients get diverted for the functioning of the immunity, and you get less nutrient for the performance parameter. See, inflammation is a very inseparable part of the immunity, and we know the AGPs, they give better result even in the healthy bird. When the gut is healthy, bird is healthy, and even if you give AGPs, it gives some positive response. Now, why this happens? The only reason is all the AGPs which are there, they are not other like other antibiotics. They are quite different than other antibiotics, because these AGPs, they do not totally kill the bacteria. They just keep in balance the bad and good bacteria, and that's why. And actually, the first important aspect of the AGPs is they are anti-inflammatory drugs, and then it comes that they are the antibacterials or the antibiotics. So they are the anti-inflammatory drugs. The problem is in a healthy gut, in the healthy bird, where is inflammation? Now inflammation is there, that is the metabolic inflammation. See, all feed ingredient which are ingested by the bird, they all are having the foreign material, and that do cause little bit irritation in the GI tract. It induces a kind of inflammation which is called as metabolic inflammation. So this metabolic inflammation is kept under control by these AGPs, and that's why the AGPs, even they give a positive response in the healthy gut or healthy bird also. Now, what are the issues with the chicken immunity? We know there are a lot of difference between in the immune status of a broiler chick and the layer chick. So why this difference? That we'll discuss. The role of immunosuppressive agent, very nicely narrated by Dr. Rukdikar, and then can we modulate or enhance the innate and the acquired immunity? These are the major areas. So we'll be covering the first and the last topic. See, in the genetic selection for the broilers, it has resulted into the organ imbalance. See, the geneticists, they focus on one particular system, that is the muscle mass, and there is a problem with their supplier organs. The supplier organs are liver, and the excretory organ is the kidney. The supplier organ is again heart and lung also for the oxygen supply. So the requirement of growing muscle mass is so high, and these organs, they remain as such. There is no much growth of this organ. So per unit volume of the tissues, the supply of oxygen, anti-nutrient, there is always putting stress on these organs, and we have so many diseases which shows the failure of this organ. Now, same thing has happened with the immune system also. With the selection of broiler birds for the faster growth rate, probably like these organs, the immune system organ have also been affected. So the body weight gain is inversely correlated with the immune function. The faster the growth rate, the poorer is the immune reaction. There is an inverse correlation between the growth rate and the immune function. So naturally, there is a lot of difference between the egg-type chicken and the broiler chicks. Now, if you see, when you open a bird of 1, 2, or 4 weeks of the layer chicks as well as broiler chicks, the broiler bird, the bursa looks very big than the bursa of the layer chicks at 4 weeks of age. But when you calculate this bursa per unit volume of the body weight, then it is totally reverse. Because layer chicks body weight is less, and if you compare the bursa ratio, then the milligram per gram of body weight, if you calculate, then at all the stages, whether it is 1 week, 2 week, 4 week, the layer birds will have a better spleen and bursa than the broiler bird. That means they have there is availability of more immune cells in case of layer chicks compared to the broiler chicks. Now, this is another parameter, that is the CD4, CD8. Now, this ratio, CD4, CD8, that is the helper T cell and the cytotoxic T cell. Now, this ratio is considered as a measurement for the immunity between two persons or two individuals. If the two bird, if you want to test which bird has got the better immunity, then we have to go for this particular ratio, because this ratio is positively related to the amount of antibody produced. So higher the ratio, that bird will produce a higher antibody to any kind of stimulation, whether it is a vaccine stimulation or the natural exposure. So if you see, compared to broiler, the layer chicks CD4 ratio is always higher in thymus, in spleen, in the blood also. That means immunity wise, the layer chicks are at a better position than the broiler chicks. So the problem is the genetics. We can select the birds for the better immune system. So it is up to the genetics to identify the lines which has the better disease resistance. So this is how one can increase the disease resistance. Then the particular issue is with the broiler chicks. The broiler chicks, up to first week, they are protected through metal antibody, but they are very susceptible between 8 to 20 days of age. Now, during this period, there is a declination of the metal or antibody level, and the vaccine which we give is slowly gaining the response. Now, there has been a study that they had the broiler bird of 1957 variety and 1991 variety. They found that this 57 bird was much better in immunity than the 91. They had given the antigen and they measured the immune response. The 91 bird had very slow immune response to the antigen. That means when you give the vaccine during first week, the response is very, very slow. And after a period of 4th or 5th week, probably both birds are reaching to the same level. So, like broiler bird, they are so lethargic. Their immune system is also so lethargic. So, the layer chicks, they will have a better response than the broiler chicks. So, first 2 to 3 weeks of broiler chicks, they are highly susceptible to the disease because they are not immunocompetent. Again, another thing, we do not vaccinate the broiler chicks with Marek's vaccine. And the Marek's virus is ubiquitous. It is everywhere in the broiler shed also. The birds get infected, and particularly during this particular period, the Marek's undergoes the cytolytic cycle. And the cytolytic cycle is highly immunosuppressive because it is killing the immature B cells in the bursa of fabriceus. Okay. So it is very important to enhance the immunity in the broiler chicks during the early phase. Then another area how to enhance is through nutrition and the vaccination. Okay. See, young broilers have below optimal immune function. If you give 5 to 10 times dietary vitamin E, it significantly increases the CD4 CD8 ratio in thymus, blood, and spleen. So if you give higher doses of vitamin E during the early age in the commercial broiler, we can enhance the immune response against the vaccination, which is slow. Now, genetic approach, nowadays a lot of work is being done in this area because this is the only way. because if they are not able to use the antibiotics and vaccines are not proving that effective, this is the best way. There's likely that we may get a chicken, gene-edited chicken, which is resistant to the influenza virus against the bird flu virus. So they have identified when the flu virus multiplies in the cell, they utilize this one host cell protein. This is the name of that protein for their multiplication. And in this protein, they utilizes only 2 amino acids for the multiplication. So if you can change the chicken genome in such a way that these 2 amino acids are deleted. So if these 2 amino acids deleted, then even if the flu virus enters the cell, it cannot replicate. So there is no disease. So this is one way that if we can develop the gene-edited chicken, we can have the chicken lines which are resistant to the bird flu virus. There is another area that the birds, even the human being, they have got the natural antibodies. Now, these natural antibodies are antibodies which are not produced in relation to any kind of vaccine or any kind of antigen or any kind of pathogen. They are there without any infection or. So these are called as the natural antibodies, and these natural antibodies, they are produced in the liver. Okay. And these natural antibodies, they are very important because they are also called as the broad neutralizing antibodies. They immediately react and they neutralize many of the pathogens. And to identify these natural antibodies, there is a selection program which is known as KLH binding. Okay. On this, we can identify the bird with a higher natural antibodies. So bird with a higher natural antibodies, they perform better in case of immunity. So a lot of work is being done, and in the human being also this is being done, this natural antibodies. So in the future, if we have the commercial lines which are having higher natural antibody level, so probably we'll have the less disease problem. Then this is another area that we can produce the resilient chicken. See, our field experience is there. We have so many commercial strains available in broiler as well as in layer. So certain commercial strains, they are definitely little resilient because they, to any kind of stressors, they are not much affected, and their recovery from the illness is also very fast. So this kind of chicken definitely will help in managing the diseases. So can we modulate the innate immunity? Because innate immunity is very important, very effective, very short, rapid, of a limited duration, and it is non-specific. Okay, and this can be, it is possible to modulate this innate immunity. Certain kind of TLR agonists are available. This one example, loxiribin. This TLR agonist, they are still under the laboratory situation, but probably it may come up and can be, because for the present they are the injectables, and probably if we can be added in the vaccine diluent, we can stimulate the immunity. So this TLR agonist, that stimulate the oxidative burst, nitric oxide production, and degranulation of the heterophils, and that is how it improves the innate immunity. The certain feed additives, they are known for improving the innate immunity. These are the probiotics, prebiotics, fibers, microbial peptides, the novel type of the carbohydrate, that is beta glucan. They also help in modulating the innate immunity. The nutrition for immunity. Now, whatever feed formulation we prepare for broiler, layer, breeder, whatever it is, we never keep in mind the immune system. It is all on the performance parameters. So generally we believe that whatever is required for the performance, those nutrients are also required for the immune system also. To a larger extent, it is true also. But the immune system has their own requirement also that we have to take care while formulating the feed formulation. And most of our feed formulation, they are the least cost formulation. So when we go for the least cost, it is for the immune system, it is the least risk formulation, because we are preparing the formulation for the least cost. It becomes a least, it should be a least risk. Least cost becomes high risk formulation for the immune system. So it should be least cost as well as the least risk formulation, taking care the immune system requirement also. Because the development of the anatomical development of the lymphoid tissue, mucus production, synthesis of the immune active substances, cellular proliferation, everything requires the nutrient. And the mechanism by which the diet affects immunity, because all the cells of the immune system, they all the kind of nutrient, whether it is protein, energy, or it is amino acid, everything is required by the immune system cells and the tissues. Now, there are certain specific requirement is there. Certain nutrients, no, the host is also required and the pathogen is also required. But in the time of infection, the pathogen gets priority for such nutrient and they nourish, they actually flourish. So during crisis, probably we have to restrict the use of this kind of nutrient. Then we have to protect against the immunopathology with this kind of nutrients. Now nowadays we have the crisis. We generally ask the public to eat the chicken product for the protein for the COVID pandemic, and the unfortunate part is that we are not able to feed our own bird with the good quality protein or appropriate protein because of the soya crisis. Now it is everybody's experience is there. When we formulate the least cost, naturally we go for the less and less crude protein, and the birds are definitely giving very good production, everything in the case of layers. But when you consider the immune system, then it is not correct. See, when you go for the lower crude protein, you are losing the arginine, and arginine is very important, and generally we don't add synthetic arginine in the layer feed formulation. Okay. And when it is a higher crude protein, we'll have a better response to the vaccine, anti-vaccine. There will be better gamma globulin level. The liver weight is also more, and of course the arginine level is also high. So the birds which are on the higher protein level may not be economical, but definitely by immune system wise they are quite strong. So such birds, they are less susceptible. The illness is also less severe, and the recovery is also very fast compared to the birds on the low protein. Now there are so many studies with the commercial broilers also, with Ross, Hubbard, and Cobb, and there are many articles also with the low and high protein. Certain birds they do not differ in case of the immune reaction with any kind of antigen, and some commercial strains they definitely differ in the immune status with the low protein diet. Now the substrate for the immune system cells to work, the amino acids, they are very important for the cytokine production, for the antibody production, and arginine is a very important immunomodulator. And when there is a amino acid deficiency, particularly thymus, there is a rapid decline in the cellularity and the weight. There will be a few number of CD4 and CD8 cells resulting into the less humoral immunity and less of the CMI. Now arginine is very important, particularly in the inflammatory fluid. The inflammatory fluid in which the phagocytic cells work, that fluid should have the good amount of arginine so that the phagocytic cells can work. So arginine increases the nitric oxide production in macrophages. It increases the killing effect of the pathogen. It increases the thymus weight and boosts its function, enhance the lymphocyte multiplication. It increases the immunity against the tumors, and very important, it helps in the healing of the wound. So arginine we have to take care. Now these two nutrients we have to take care. Very critical for the pathogen as well as the immune cells. Now you have to decide whether we want to nourish the immune cells or we want to nourish the pathogens. Now, nature has got its own way of helping the host, that it has the sequestration. Whenever the disease strikes, immediately body try to hide the iron in the body. So they will cover the iron and make not available to the pathogens. Okay. And the body will try to reduce the absorption from the GI tract. So the body's response, body doesn't want that the iron should available to the pathogen. So they try to hide the iron or reduce the absorption. So there are so many references that when you give the iron during the E. coli infection, it increases the mortality in the bird. Similarly, the biotin. Biotin also, if it is there in the chick feed, it increases the chick mortality because biotin is required by the pathogens. So they will get the priority to get the biotin. So these are the two nutrients which we should carefully use it. Now, iron generally we use in the treatment of chicken anemia with dermatitis. So it is also risky, particularly when dermatitis is associated with the staphylococcus. Probably during early and late phase, it is still possible to give the iron therapy. But the chicken anemia, the anemia is not because of the iron deficiency. It is due to something else. So it is not related with the iron. So I do not know. Even I also prescribe, but does it help to the bird? We do not know. Now, protecting against immunopathology. Actually, the inflammation is the integral part of the immunity. We cannot separate immunity because this is the way how the immune system works. Okay, but all inflammations are not necessarily beneficial for the host. The best example is allergic inflammation. The allergic inflammation, which is not at all needed, and if there is a reaction, then it is a harmful. The another issue is our cytokine surge. Now, in COVID, as well as in case of bird flu outbreak, there is a huge production of the cytokine, and this cytokine causes per acute or acute death because of the very high response towards the pathogen. So that is also not required. Those cytokines are very important for the mediation of the immune system. So somewhere we have to keep in control the inflammation also. Okay. So that is how we have to prevent the immunopathology. Now, what is the optimum immunity? Does it mean that you go on giving vaccine, and get a very good titer that the birds are protected? What we do for Ranicate disease. So does it mean that the more and more titer is a good one? That's not true. So maximum is not essentially optimal. So we need optimal and not the maximum, because the immune system, memory cells, they do respond whenever there is a need. So there is no need of keeping a very high level every time. And to prevent the immunopathology, we are using the antioxidants like vitamin E, selenium, vitamin C, and this omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, so that keep control the function of T cells, the response of the antibody, and influence the macrophages to be less inflammatory. So this is a double-edged sword. No, one time we need the inflammation. At the same time, we need that it should be under control. It should function under control. So anytime when we discuss regarding the immunosuppression, the first thing come in mind is vitamin E and selenium. So vitamin E is definitely a very important immune system booster, and there are so many references. It prevents the oxidation and thus the release of prostaglandins. In the infectious bronchitis, infected trachea, if you increase the dose of vitamin E in the diet, it will reduce the multiplication and the shedding of the infectious bronchitis virus. Okay. Earlier, we have seen that if you increase the level of vitamin E, it increases the CD4 CD8 ratio and improves the humoral antibody production.
Sir,
Vitamin C, of course, it is known.
Sir, excuse me. Can you speed up please? Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, I was expecting. Yeah.
Because can you please highlight the key points?
Okay.
Yeah.
Vitamin C is known. Then Dr. Ugrika has mentioned about the vitamin D and this I will just discuss this acute phase proteins. See, during the COVID phase, everybody, these are household names. The estimations of IL-6, then C-reactive protein and the serum ferritin. See, whenever there is an acute outbreak, immediately the body respond, particularly the liver respond by producing the acute phase protein. So C-reactive protein is the acute phase protein. These are the opsonizing proteins, and immediately they will take care of the pathogen and enhance the phagocytosis. So C-reactive protein has become the very important inflammatory marker. Okay. So in response to the IL-6, IL-1 and tumor necrosis factor, the liver produces C-reactive protein. If you consider the older jungle fowl, they are very strong in the acute phase protein production, but this is actually expensive. So when the bird is producing acute phase protein, they reduces the production of albumin, and this will affect the other performance parameter. That's why in the COVID situation, the person affected with COVID, even with the normal diet and full bed rest, they will lose the weight. And this weight loss is because the production is diverted towards certain other proteins, and the bodybuilding proteins are reduced, and that affects the uh, uh, body weight gain. The serum creatine is the one way by which the protein binds the free iron, and body doesn't want that this iron is available for the pathogen, so they bind. So that is the serum creatine. So zinc, copper, manganese have the also important role in managing the immunity. So zinc, then the vitamin E, selenium, then the chromium, they are all the known nutrient. Another issue with our commercial bird, that in nature, when the chicks born, they born with the mother, and there is a mother flora around which colonize the gut. In our situation, we make the everything sterile, and actually we kill all the normal flora, mother flora, everything, and we cultivate the pure organisms of CAV, Murex, Gamboro, and the Clostridial spores, because they are all very hard and difficult to kill with the disinfectant. And our birds, they get exposed to this kind of in a very early age. Dr. Updikar has already mentioned, when they are exposed to this CAV, IBD in the early age, then there will be severe immunosuppression. The birds may not die, but their immune system fails and they do not perform with any kind of vaccination. So there is a lot of difference between the gut of a indigenous chicken and the commercial chicken. If you rear on the same litter, same feed, same water, both the type of chicken, there will be a difference in the microbial composition of the commercial bird as well as the indigenous bird. And the gut requires nearly 20 to 25% of the oxygen, protein, energy in a normal healthy state. So whenever it is insulted, the nutrients are diverted, and this will affect the growth parameter. And for that, we need the modulation of the intestinal epithelium, and one very good modulator is the beta glucan. And the beta glucan not only keep health of the epithelium, but it increases the killing power of the heterophils. Now, one important tool to modulate immunity is the vaccine. We have so many vaccines for various diseases, of bacterial and viral diseases, and this is how we the vaccine response for primary, secondary, even with the exposure also you will get the such kind of immunity. So, when the immune system is exposed to any kind of, suppose NDV infection or vaccination, initially in a early few hours or days, it is the innate immunity which affects, and then you get the titer, and the metal antibody level will decline, and the vaccine titer will increase. So if you have got the very good titer against Newcastle disease, you can take care of the genotype 13 virus also, because genotype 13 virus cannot escape when the titer is very high. In case of infectious bronchitis, we generally believe in the killed vaccine, but the systemic protection, systemic antibody titer has no correlation with the protection. So it is the local immunity which is very important in case of IB. So it's just seeing the IB titer doesn't mean that they are protected. We have to take care of the local immunity. And for that, the live vaccines, either in the ocular, intranasal, or drinking water, they are much more important than the killed vaccine. In case of low pathogenic avian influenza, this is a different kind of pathogenesis. Now, this virus causes the immunosuppression of the immune system. It downregulates the IL-4, the interferon production, and it causes the immunosuppression, and there is a lot of multiplication of the virus. So there also, both, of course, the local as well as humoral immunity do work, but these are the immunosuppressive type of virus. And in case of mixed infection with the variant virus and the NDV virus, there will be interference with the same site. There will be interference with the interferon, but of course there won't be much effect on the two different diseases when they occur simultaneously. Of course, there will be some enhancement in the if it is ND outbreak. In case of variant virus and the mycoplasma, it increases the mycoplasma infection when there is a low pathogenic immunity, because it reduces the anti-MG antibody and there will be higher MG replication, and it causes the enhancement of the MG infection. Now, to conclude, if the future demands for antibiotic free or no antibiotic ever poultry product, there is issues of food safety, welfare related poultry production system. If this is the future of poultry industry, then the modulating chicken immunity with biosecurity is the best. I should say it is the only approach for the disease management. Okay. So how one can modulate the chicken immunity? One is the host must resist infection. So to resist infection, we should have the genetics or the genome of the host in such a way that they resist themselves the infection. And then there should have the very strong innate immunity. The innate immunity should be like that of jungle fowl. Okay, so we need a bird with the immunity like jungle fowl and the productivity like a present bird. The host must fight and win the infection. So dietary addition of to boost innate immunity. So dietary modification we can do to modulate the immunity, and this dietary modification is with the probiotic, prebiotic, microbial peptide, fiber, beta glucan. Then nutritional modulation we do with the so many kind of the nutrients. Then this is very important. If the government wants that there is a less use of antibiotics, then they should provide a strain serotype specific vaccine for the diseases, and for all other diseases for which vaccine is not available. So those vaccines should be made available. And then we should keep the host immune system should be protected from the damage. Dr. Uplikar dealt with topic in a great detail. So take care of the immune system by preventing immune suppression with the infectious and non-infectious causes. So thank you, friends. I'm a little sorry for extending because the topic is so vast, it's very difficult to cover. Thank you.
It's a wonderful presentation, Dr. Prajapati sir. Thank you for enlightening us by touching the aspects of genetic selection versus organic imbalance, the faster weight gain versus immunity, that is nutrition for immunity. It is a wonderful and vast subject, and it is very much evident as higher weight gain is associated with higher mortality. Many of the indicators, they observe that whenever they dilute the feed, the mortality rate comes down. So it means that you're absolutely right that whenever you put a stress metabolic stress and performance pressure, automatically immunity goes down. So this is a wonderful insight. I like this one. Then you have touched the subject of amino acids and immunity. It is again a vast subject. I keep on reading very much about it, and it is a very, very much important aspect. As you rightly said, arginine is one of the important amino acid. So this is a subject to explore more now. And you have touched upon the trace mirrors and immunity also. This is also a wonderful and interesting subject. Again, you have touched upon many aspects of innate immunity, humoral immunity, acquired immunity, everything. So altogether, it's an all-rounder presentation, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. So can I take up the questions and answers now? So the first question is, can you please explain the role of beta glucans, MOS, nucleotides, etc. to enhance immunity in broiler? Can you please share the practical experience? To Dr. Prajapati, can you please?
I think he has mentioned one slide. He has just
Yeah,
highlighted.
already this has been covered, no? Yeah, definitely very important. They do boost the innate immunity, particularly of the gut.
Okay. One more question. In present situation, because of use of alternate feed ingredients, the gut immunity is under big challenge, even though most of the feed manufacturers, integrators are not using gut immunomodulators for the sake of feed cost. What is your opinion, Dr. Prajapati, sir?
Actually, we have to accept certain fact. One fact is the AGPs, they are definitely the gold standard. It is very difficult to reach to the level of effectiveness of AGP by any of the alternatives. The AGPs are cheaper. The alternatives you have to use in combination. We don't have a single alternative which can replace AGP. So you have to use probiotic, prebiotic, acidifiers, 2-3 combination to match the effect of AGPs. So actually here also the economics play a role. So how many you are going to add against the AGPs? When the AGPs are so cheap and so effective, so when still the farmer can use it if there are no issues, then that is the first choice. And then if they are not able to use, probably we have to go for alternatives. But people along with the AGPs, they do use probiotics or prebiotics also. But definitely all alternatives, no, they have to yet prove that they are as good as AGPs. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to achieve that status.
Thank you, sir. The question is for Dr. Ruprikar, sir. Is serology is the only way to monitor immunity of bird?
Right now, it's the easiest way to find out. See, a lot of research, modern research on cellular and molecular level is going on. And they are trying to come out with some solution which can be a tool in prevention of immunosuppression. Quantitative RT-PCR can give you a quantitation of cytokine, chemokine, and their receptor genes, which can be quantified in birds. And they may be used to assess the immune status in the stress and disease conditions. So that may come at later stage. But it's a bit in the pipeline. So maybe right now only serology seems to be the option for assessing immune system.
I heard that, I learned through it's my experience that the titers doesn't always indicate immunity. If the titers of particular disease are high, it doesn't mean that your birds are immunized to it. I don't know, it's a statement. One more question. Because of high rate of soybean meal, there is a lot of change in feed to reduce cost by integrators. So, and this is leading to this is particularly in Nashik area he mentioned, it is outbreak of IBD, ND, IBH. So, what is the reason for this? What is?
Who is to answer?
I think the answer lies itself in the question.
That's what I wanted to say. It's there in the question itself. We did not get any explanation on that.
Yeah.
One point, Dr. Ajay, what you said about the titers is very true. The titers themselves are not indication of full protection against that particular disease. And I think Dr. Prajapati also mentioned it, that high is not, or maximum is not optimum. Because as a PDRC person, we came across so many titers, wherein the titers were very high, but the disease was there. And at some places, the titers, especially for IB, were showing like exposed, but the flock was showing 94% production without any internal or external equality problem. So it has, and as it is, a lab diagnosis is always a half diagnosis, unless it is correlated with the field findings. It's not a real diagnosis.
Nice inputs, sir. One more question is, do you prefer IBD vaccination commercial broiler through drinking water than oral drop or eye drop to minimize the stresses on bird at early age, as IBD vaccination can be spread horizontally? Horizontally, it doesn't spread.
No, basically, what he means is to avoid the stress on the birds, because individual vaccination you have to keep at one side, then hold the bird, vaccinate and leave it. But what I feel is, since it is done at around 12 days of age in broilers, and layers, of course, 2-3 vaccines depending on history, the first vaccine at least should go as individual vaccine. If at all there are 2 shots, second may go as drinking water. That's what I feel. Because first vaccine, you are at least sure that each bird is immunized. Second vaccine, see, water vaccination, however foolproof we say, it is never foolproof. Some birds will skip. So better go with individual vaccination for the first shot.
As far as IBD is concerned,
Or the second option is that hatchery vaccination day, that whatever new vaccines have come for day 1 hatchery vaccination or in vivo at 18 days, that is another option wherein you need not handle the birds at all in the farm.
it's a nice one. One more observation, my observation, practical observation is, there is a term that is vaccine take-up. So IBD vaccination is a hot vaccine. If you are giving intermediate plus vaccine, it is a hot one. And to take up that vaccine, birds should be prepared. So there is a limitation of body weight for it. If you vaccinate intermediate plus vaccine at lower body weight, you may observe more vaccine reaction, and which is the cause of one more cause of immunosuppression, I think. Dr. Rukirkar, you can comment on this one.
See, basically, any type of invasive intermediate vaccine is going to damage bursa to a certain extent. Only thing we have to see which vaccine damages bursa minimum. That is one point. And second point, of course, how much the bird is immunocompetent. That also decides how far it can tackle with the hot strain. Actually, invasive intermediate is a must nowadays. Otherwise, if you see the older versions about 15 years back, in broilers, nobody was going for invasive intermediate. It was only standard intermediate. But now we have to go for it to looking at the current situation. So only thing, as Dr. Prajapati said, vitamin E excess will definitely help to avoid those type of reactions.
Nice one. One more question for Dr. Prajapati, sir. What is recommended vaccine schedule for IB issues when lesions are observed during start of 4th week of commercial broilers? IB is a very tricky problem. Lot of variants are there. So your suggestions and guidance will be helpful.
IB in case of layer?
Commercial broilers. He has mentioned commercial broilers. I think it maybe it's a mixed infection.
Actually, again, there are issues.
Maybe there, sir.
There are issues of IB vaccination in case of commercial broiler. If your commercial chicks are free from mycoplasma, okay, you will get good results with IB vaccine. If your chicks are having already vertical spread of mycoplasma, then it will enhance the mycoplasma proliferation, and then you will end up in some of the respiratory issues. So be sure that the chick quality is very good. Then another issue is the environment. Actually, the dust, the litter material, everything. After IB vaccination, the little damage to the respiratory system should not get exposed to the dust particle or ammonia or E. coli like that. So these are the 2 issues. If you can manage, then probably the MFI or H120 type of vaccine definitely you can go for. And definitely in broiler, this is a issue is there of IB, and which is the cause of the respiratory complex disease also. So good quality chicks, and then you can prevent the secondary issues with the after IB vaccination. Probably you can have better response. Any next question?
Process nowadays after 28 days.
In the first few days only we have to give the vaccine. The day old or between 1 to 3 days we have to give the IB vaccine to prevent issues during the week. But then we have to take care. Some preconditions are there when you are using IB vaccine. Next question, please.
What are tests to examine vaccine, whether they are efficacious or not? How do the government authorities like FDA examine vaccines? Examining antigenic concentration is not fruitful and ultimate test. Antibodies titration too can't be so confirmative. So what he mean to say is what are the proven tests to examine vaccine efficacy? That is what I mean to say. What is sir?
I think there are the ways to know whether the vaccine is appropriate or not. Of course, the vaccine quality part, the quality assurance department, they definitely do. But if there are differences between the field pathogen and the vaccine pathogen, probably the vaccine may not work. And for that, you need the serum neutralization test. Because every time, suppose in case of IB, we have so many variants also. So IB just getting the ELISA titer will not help. So if the serotype difference is there, then you have to go for the serum neutralizing test, serum neutralization. So that is little difficult to perform. General lab they do not perform, but that is the way of identifying the serotype difference and their vaccine response. Serum neutralization we have to go for.
Next question to Dr. Rupidigar sir. How the differentiation between aflatoxin, thyroid toxicity, and early RD can be done?
Basically, this thing cannot be confirmed at the field level. Thyrum doesn't have any postmortem lesions or any symptoms as such. Thyrum is known to cause only production drop almost to 0%. So you won't get any live birth antemortem symptoms or postmortem lesions for thyrum. As far as aflatoxin is concerned, of course, so many complicating pictures are there. And if ND is there, we need to get it confirmed from lab itself, because 100% lesions, many times we feel they are pathognomonic, but still there may be some other involvement also. So I think lab confirmation would be a better option.
Thank you. One more question. Can we replace AGPs and acidifier by pre and probiotic in layer and broilers? Prajapati sir, can you answer please?
I think you can do it with layers because there are less gut health issues are there. But when you are talking of the broilers, probably either alone prebiotic and probiotic combination is sometimes not helping, because there will be some the vent leaking problems are there. There is a diarrhea, then loose dropping. And in that case, definitely you have to add either acidifier or the AGPs. So as far as the layers are concerned, probably you can do well with pre and probiotics. When you are considering the broilers, then along with pre and pro antibiotics, you have to add another one either in the form of acidifiers or the AGPs.
One question. ILT in some states is preferred to be treated and protected with the help of vaccination. What do you suggest?
What is the question?
ILT in some states, in some part of the India, some states, particularly maybe ILT is prominent in southern India. So ILT in some states is preferred to be treated than protected with the help of vaccination. What do you suggest? Better to go for vaccination or we should treat it?
Yeah, it is a very tricky question. No, there is no simple answer.
Okay.
Because in the vaccinated birds also you do get a little outbreak at the start of the production, but recovery is there. But the one thing is very important that in ILT, probably the local immunity is very important. So the way of vaccination, particularly the first vaccine which is being done, it should be intranasal or ocular route. So a lot of difference between the drinking water and the nasal or ocular route. So if the nasal or ocular route is preferred, probably protection is better than the drinking water method. So the method of vaccination is also important. But again, whole embryo origin and tissue culture vaccine also there is a difference. And the embryo origin vaccines are doing better than the tissue culture vaccine. So it all based upon the experience, because it is not the only source, but there are the better vaccines now available with the vector vaccines with the HVT, and they take care of all the issues with the live vaccines. But the availability is the problem. But the vector ILT vaccine is the best choice for the control of ILT.
My question is, once we introduce the ILT vaccination on premises, can you stop using it for the future plots, or shall we continue it?
Yeah, actually, it is an endemic type. It remains localized in a particular geographical area, and you can manage with the other than the vaccine. That is the best way. But the vaccine, if you use, then it will. They are likely to spread the disease. So actually, those areas which they don't have the ILT issues, they should never use the vaccine. So once you use vaccine, probably you are creating the problem. So only in a geographical area where there are the endemic issues of ILT outbreak, probably there only the vaccine is suggested.
Thank you very much. Last question. How do we recognize the IBD infection at subclinical stage? Dr. Vidikar sir, can you please answer?
How do I recognize?
How do we recognize the IBD infection at subclinical stage?
To be frank, it's not very easy, but I just share my experience. Some farmers in integration, they got good results up to 26, 27 days of age. And after that, they started suddenly getting increased FCR and lingering mortality. And there was no actually systemic mortality as such to indicate any disease. When the birds were opened, whatever mortality was there, maybe 0.01%. When I opened, the bursa was slightly enlarged. Actually, at this stage in broilers, you don't expect enlarged bursa because you give vaccine around 12 days or so, and around 15, 17 days, you see some enlargement. So I took those bursas for histopathology, and there they confirmed that it was subclinical IBD. So maybe by chance, if you happen to open the birds with similar history of underperforming birds, we may send the bursa for his HP, and then we can confirm whether it was lymphocytic depletion indicating IBD.
So this is all from the question and answer session. Thank you very much, Dr. Rubrikar sir and Dr. Prajapati sir,
Thank you.
for honoring our request and enlightening all the budding vets and entrepreneurs. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks a lot for you too.
And, Dr. Pankaj, may I request Dr.
Thank you very much, Ajay sir. Good evening to all. I am very much thankful to both the eminent speakers, Dr. Rubrikar sir and Dr. Prajapati sir, who have given a good insight along with the knowledge of chicken immunity and health. I am sure that this is a great value addition for the participant, which will help them to overcome the ongoing challenging situation in the field. On behalf of VIP Management Committee, I am thankful to all the participants for sharing your valuable time. I thank VIP President Dr. Ajay Deshpande sir, Vice President Dr. VRK sir, Technical Advisor Professor Dr. Ranade sir, and all Management Committee members for conducting this superb series of webinar, and all the team members, all the VIP team members who made this series successful. We are looking forward to seeing you soon in the next webinar of the series on 6th of August at the same time. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Namaste.
तुम्ही बसून राहा.